Greetings, Alvis Tennant here. 50 plus years of martial and healing arts training and practicing. Wanted to give a little bit more in-depth history on the martial art I'm primarily involved in now, which is Bando, B-A-N-D-O. For my 52 years of training, 40 of those years I've been under the umbrella of the Bando system. I have a direct relationship with the Grand Master of that system, Dr. Mongji, who I'm grateful, eternally grateful for all the beneficiary things that I've learned from him, the beneficial things that I've learned from him. Let me talk to you a little bit about what Bando is. Bando is a Burmese, or Myanmar is the country now in Southeast Asia. Martial practice, martial arts as well as healing arts are under the umbrella of Bando. It's a very multifaceted and eclectic martial art encompassing empty hand, stick, edge weapon, and handgun. So we call it fist, stick, knife, gun concept as far as martial arts. And then the healing arts has healing arts like Min Zen, M-I-N-Z-I-N, which is Burmese practice that was practiced in the Himalayan mountains by the Tibetan and Burmese monks. So Burma, or Myanmar as it's called now, borders China, India, and Tibet. So its influences both martially and spiritually are from those three countries as well. But I met Dr. G in 1984. I began training in Bando in 1983. Keep this in mind. I'd already been in martial arts from 1972. So at 15, I started in martial arts, karate, kung fu, and some kickboxing. And I met my Bando instructor by the name of Tahir Khalid, who, according to Dr. G, was one of the best kickboxers of the early 70s. So Tahir, at that point, we had a group in Newark, New Jersey. I was about 26 at that time. And Tahir was about 34, but we had a group, and I was the assistant instructor because I had the most experience in martial arts next to Tahir. So we had a group of about 20 young guys, probably anywhere from 16 to about 30, 32. And then Tahir, as I said, was 34. But we trained very diligently in hard style Bando kickboxing as well as hand-to-hand combat. And Tahir would train us, and he'd always talk about his instructor, Dr. G. And some of the training techniques were things I'd never seen before, but it really was what I'd been looking for. So anyway, in 1984, after we'd been training with Tahir for a year or more, and we stuck together, had good cohesive group, he had Dr. G come out and train us. About 20 of us in the group. And Dr. G came out to train us for 3 beautiful days, and we trained no less than 12 hours a day during each of those training sessions. Dr. G was very charismatic and eloquent speaker and explained so much about Bando in depth. He talked about the 9 lives of a Bando man. He talked about the 9 levels of courage. He talked about the meaning of the Bando, some of which I'm going to go over with you in a little while. He talked about the 9 animal systems, the fist, stick, knife, gun concept. It was just very fulfilling just hearing these lectures. And then he trained us in the cane. He trained us with the short stick, the fist stick, the kukri, as well as tremendous amount of kickboxing and hand-to-hand combat. At the end of this 3-day training session, I was filled up with joy that I had found what I felt I'd found the martial art that I'd been looking for. My martial art for me is kind of like a vision quest. I always knew that I was going to find something. And when I met Dr. G and heard about Bando, I knew I'd found something, a mountain so high that I could climb it the rest of my life, but I would never reach the top. And so when after Dr. G was getting ready to leave, I took him to the airport, and we had a private conversation. And I said to him, I want to be your disciple. I really am filled up with this Bando. It's what I've been looking for my whole life. Dr. G turned to me and looked me right in my eyes, and he said to me, when the student is ready, the master will appear. Long before this occurs, the student will have met the teacher through the various personalities which have guided him along the way. When the student is ready for the next stage of his instruction, the next stage of his training rather, the appropriate instructor for that next stage will come to him. True masters and initiates do exist, but they do not advertise. In the end, one must always remember that there's only one true master, the inner self who hides behind the mask of the apprentice. Now, this was 1984. I still remember this like it was yesterday. My mind became open. I feel like in Zen Buddhism they call that a koan, where someone says something to you and you become immediately enlightened. I felt that. And then from that day to this, I was enlightened. And I knew I reached another level. Like I said, I'd found the mountain to climb. And I'd found the instructor, the person. See, because a true master will always point you back to yourself. And that's where I began to train and have been with Dr. G since that time in 1984. And Tahir and I would go out to train with him while I lived in New Jersey. He was in Ohio at the time, so we've been out there several times to spend a few days with him. He'd come to see us a few more times, and I would always practice and still practice many of the things I learned then in 1984. We went out to see Dr. G one weekend, and he gave us a 3-hour lecture on the meaning of the Bando symbol. I'm not going to take 3 hours, but I want to talk to you about that in the next video.